The first thing you notice is not its size, or its steel, or even its lineage. It's the absence of noise in the history books. The Colt Model 635 does not roar its way through popular memory. It doesn't dominate headlines or cinema screens, and it isn't wrapped in the mythic aura of battlefield legends. Yet its silence is exactly where its power lies. This is a weapon born not for spectacle, but for precision, restraint, and control. A firearm that emerged during a moment when warfare itself was changing shape. To understand the Colt Model 635 is to understand a turning point when militaries and security forces around the world began to realize that the future of conflict would not always be decided by overwhelming force, but by adaptability, discretion, and psychological dominance. The late 20th century was an era of transition. The Cold War loomed large, but its conflicts were rarely fought head-on. Instead, tension seeped into cities, airports, embassies, and alleyways. Hijackings, terrorism, hostage situations, and urban insurgencies became the new battlefields. Traditional infantry rifles, powerful and effective in open combat, often proved excessive in close quarters. On the other end of the spectrum, handguns lacked the stability, accuracy, and psychological presence needed in high-risk operations. What emerged was a gap, a need for something compact yet authoritative, controllable yet formidable. The Colt Model 635 was designed to live precisely in that space. At its core, the Model 635 represents a philosophical shift. It is based on the familiar AR platform, a design that had already proven its modularity and reliability. But instead of firing a full-power rifle cartridge, it chambered the 9.19mm round, a choice that signaled intent. This was not about long-range dominance. It was about environments where every wall, every bystander, every echo mattered. The decision to blend a submachine gun caliber with a rifle-style architecture reflected a growing understanding of modern conflict, that ergonomics, training familiarity, and control could outweigh raw power. Colt's engineers were not working in a vacuum. Across the world, militaries and law enforcement agencies were grappling with similar questions. European designs had long embraced the submachine gun as a tool for urban and close-quarters combat. But in the United States, institutional inertia and logistical realities favored platforms that felt familiar to existing forces. The Model 635 offered continuity. Its controls mirrored those of standard service rifles, reducing training time and cognitive load in high-stress situations. In moments where seconds could define life or death, familiarity became a strategic advantage. The Model 635's development cannot be separated from the psychological climate of its time. The late 1970s and 1980s were marked by a growing sense of vulnerability within supposedly secure spaces. Airports, government buildings, and urban centers became symbolic targets. The weaponry carried by those tasked with protection sent a message not just to potential adversaries, but to the public itself. The Colt Model 635 projected authority without appearing overtly militarized. Its compact form suggested readiness without escalation, a balance that mattered deeply in politically sensitive environments. This balance also influenced how the weapon was perceived by those who carried it. Firearms are not neutral tools in the hands of their users. They shape posture, confidence, and decision-making. The controllability of the 9mm platform reduced recoil and allowed for faster follow-up shots. But more importantly, it encouraged deliberate action. In environments where overpenetration and collateral damage were constant concerns, restraint became part of the weapon's identity. The Model 635 was not about dominating space through firepower, but about managing it through presence. As the weapon entered service with select military units and law enforcement agencies, it quietly demonstrated its value. It was never meant to replace frontline rifles, nor to compete with iconic submachine guns in popular culture. Instead, it functioned as a bridge, both technically and symbolically. It connected the world of military hardware with the nuanced demands of domestic security and counterterrorism. This duality is central to its story. The Model 635 existed at the intersection of war and policing, a space where the rules were less clear and the consequences more visible. Technologically, the weapon reflected Colt's broader design philosophy. The use of the AR platform allowed for modularity and customization, not in the sense of excessive modification, but in adaptability to mission requirements. Barrel lengths, stocks, and accessories could be adjusted within institutional frameworks, reinforcing the idea that no single configuration defined the weapon. This flexibility mirrored the uncertainty of the era itself. Threats were no longer uniform or predictable, and the tools designed to address them had to be equally adaptable. Yet the Model 635's story is not one of unchecked success. Its adoption was selective, and its lifespan relatively limited. As technology advanced, newer designs emerged, offering improved materials, ergonomics, and caliber options. The rise of compact rifles and personal defense weapons blurred the lines the Model 635 once occupied so clearly. But to judge it solely by longevity would miss the point. Its true significance lies in what it represented at the moment of its creation. The psychological impact of the Model 635 extended beyond those who carried it. For adversaries, the presence of a compact, controlled firearm in the hands of trained professionals signaled preparedness. It suggested that security forces were not relying on brute force alone, but on thoughtful design and strategy. In this sense, the weapon functioned as a deterrent, not through intimidation, but through implication. It communicated that the environment was understood, that the response would be measured, and that chaos would not be allowed to flourish unchecked. This message resonated during an era when the legitimacy of force was increasingly scrutinized. Media coverage of security operations brought public attention to every decision made in the field. Weapons became symbols as much as tools, and their appearance mattered. The Model 635's restrained profile aligned with a broader effort to maintain public trust while addressing real threats. It embodied an attempt to reconcile the need for security with the desire for normalcy. In geopolitical terms, the Colt Model 635 reflects a uniquely American response to global challenges. Rather than adopting foreign designs wholesale, it adapted an existing domestic platform to meet new needs. This approach reinforced logistical independence and industrial continuity. It also highlighted a confidence in the underlying design principles of the AR system, which could be reshaped to serve radically different roles without losing its core identity. The weapon's quiet presence in history also raises questions about how we measure impact. Not every influential design becomes iconic. Some operate in the background, shaping practices and expectations without fanfare. The Model 635 influenced how institutions thought about close-quarters engagements, training standardization, and the relationship between weapon design and environment. Its legacy can be traced not through famous battles, but through doctrine, policy, and incremental change. As the decades passed, the context that gave birth to the Model 635 continued to evolve. Threats became more diffuse, technology more advanced, and the line between military and law enforcement roles increasingly complex. In this shifting landscape, the Model 635 stands as a snapshot, a moment frozen in steel and polymer. It reminds us that weapons are not just responses to threats, but reflections of how societies understand and prioritize safety, control, and power. There is also a human dimension to this story. Behind every design decision were engineers, policymakers, and operators grappling with uncertainty. They were responding not only to technical challenges, but to ethical ones. How much force is enough? How much is too much? The Model 635 does not answer these questions definitively, but it embodies an attempt to ask them honestly. Its existence suggests a desire to equip professionals with tools that encourage responsibility as much as effectiveness. In modern discussions about weapons and security, it is easy to gravitate toward extremes, either glorifying firepower or condemning its existence outright. The Colt Model 635 occupies a more nuanced space. It neither celebrates violence nor pretends that threats can be ignored. Instead, it illustrates a pragmatic approach, one that acknowledges danger while striving to manage it thoughtfully. This nuance is perhaps its most enduring contribution. Today, the Model 635 is often encountered in historical collections, training archives, or the memories of those who once carried it. Its steel may bear the marks of use, but its story remains intact. It speaks of an era when the future was uncertain and solutions had to be crafted with care. It reminds us that progress in weapon design is not always about more power, but about better alignment between tools and values. As we look toward the future of security and conflict, the lessons embedded in the Colt Model 635 remain relevant. Technology will continue to advance and threats will continue to change, but the fundamental challenge persists: how to protect without overreaching, how to prepare without provoking, how to maintain control without losing humanity. The Model 635 does not provide a blueprint, but it offers a case study in balance. In the end, the Colt Model 635 is not defined by the shots it fired, but by the questions it raised and the conversations it shaped. It stands as a reminder that even the quietest weapons can leave a lasting echo in history. If this story made you see familiar steel in a new light, take a moment to reflect on how design, context, and consequence intertwine. And if you want more deep dives into the weapons that shaped our world, consider liking the video, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing for future stories that go beyond the surface and into the meaning behind the metal.